be standing here right now. A few years ago, I was teaching a class. I teach a class often at Clackamas called Rhetorical Argument, where students look at various issues in different, Socratic argument, atonement argument, different styles of arguing. And so we deal with lots, we talk about all sorts of issues all the time. And students were, and it was a time at Clackamas where a lot of people were about to be laid off, gotten sort of the warning signs. And the first people who go, I guess you guys probably know in school, layoffs are the staff, what they call the staff people, the people who are the registrar, the people who are the administrative assistants, the people, it was one of those rounds of cuts, and of course all the part-time people. So, and then students, all these classes were getting closed. So students were complaining, and they were talking about, I can't get in this class, I can't do this. So the president of our school has these, she calls them fireside chats. And so she doesn't ever go out to anybody. She'll hold court, right? And then you can come to these, and they're always whenever there's classes. Like I've gone to a few and there's like 2 people there, right? So there's never anybody there. So she was having a fireside chat. And it was just at our Harmony campus, which is our extension campus was behind Toys R Us, out in Clackamas, you know where that is. So the students were talking about, I can't get in, I can't, and everything's online, and I can't, and I said, the president, and so it was the middle of class, and I said, the president's having a chat, let's go. Let's go. So, and I've been talking about, I was talking to my students about humanities, and I'm always concerned about, when I started teaching 15 years ago, to transfer to a 4-credit, from a community college to a 4-credit university, you had to take a literature class, or you had to take a series of literature classes if you were going to get an education, and all that's gone now. There was always a fiction class, a poetry class, a Shakespeare class every term. Now we're lucky if we get one a year. And there's this push to everything in the community college has to be tied to jobs. Everybody, and has to have what they call pathways, career pathway. My battery's dead. So anyway, so I bring my students over to this thing, and I'm just expecting it'll just be our class. We'll have a nice chat with the president. Well, it was packed. And all these people who were about to be laid off were also there to talk to the president. So she was opening it up for questions, and people were saying, and she started off by saying this odd thing. She said, well, and one of the programs that was on the chopping block was the GED program, which was at Clackamas, where if you have a GED, if you didn't get your high school diploma, you can go get a GED at Clackamas. She said, well, I might, and she looked, and she said to the audience, and I didn't know where this audience was, a bunch of people who within the next couple of weeks were looking at losing their jobs. So when she made the Shakespeare statement, I didn't say anything. And my students all turned and looked at me like, come on, Sue. that's a cue. And I thought, I can't bring up Shakespeare when all these people are talking about the possibility of losing their jobs. And so we got back to class, and so that stuck with me, that moment, that kind of encounter. And I thought in the back of my head, I want to start writing, well, what happens when you take the humanities away? I started with exploring that question. What happens when they go away? And I was lucky enough to get a sabbatical 2 years ago, and I started with that question, just exploring that question. And I read lots of things, but when I read Diane Ravitch's book, The Death and Life of the American School System, I had no idea about the whole privatization, and then all the accountability and outcome and the lingo and all that stuff, it all made sense, where it was coming from, what it was. And so I started working on this play, and I thought, well, in order for every good play, or for a play to be a worthy stage method, you have to humanize it. I said, how do you take it? So that I didn't want to write just a polemic, but I wanted to write characters that were living this. And so I started out with thinking about, well, who are the teachers? I mean, when I grew up in a family that, my father was in the military, my mom taught piano. They weren't real, literary people, or nobody encouraged me to write or do theater or anything like that. But my teachers did. Always. I always had a teacher on my side. And I thought, some of the teachers that influenced me most when I grew up, like, how would they fare in this system? And that's how I created this character of Rosalind, who's the central character of the play. And when I was doing my research, I came across an editorial by Susan Barrett in the Washington Post. And it was about the reason why she left Stand for Children. And I was like, wow, this is a cool piece of writing. This is really good. If you haven't found it, you should Google it. It's wonderful. And so somehow I got on some email lists, and some we're going to start this organization, Oregon Save Our Schools. And so I went to the very first meeting of Oregon Save Our Schools, and Susan was there. And I'm just so proud to be associated with this organization. It's the only organization out there that's following the legislature, that's tracking what's going on. If you're not if you don't like them on Facebook or following their blogs, you should, because it's a very important organization, and they've been very supportive of this play. And then I've watched The Inconvenient Truth Behind Waiting for Superintendent like 3 or 4 times. I've seen Brian Jones' video, and I'm like, oh, this guy, he's cool. He's great. So when the play finally came together, and how that happened was, I wrote like first draft. I mean, it was early. This has never happened in my life. Actually, I have like 15 million drafts before I even do a reading. But I happened to submit it. And I wasn't even going to submit it to the Fertile Ground Festival last year. It was an unfinished draft. And I ran into Meet Hunter, who's a dramaturg in town, and I said, I've had this play, and I'm not quite finished with it, but I kind of want to submit it to this reading thing. And he goes, well, just tell him you're not quite finished with it, and tell him what you want to do. So I did. I wrote this letter. I said, I have this play. Here it is. And I'm kind of not quite finished. And they picked it to be in this reading for what's called New Northwest. So I did a couple workshops, and my husband's a member of Third Rail, and I have some friends in third grade, my good friend Jacqueline's in Third Rail, so I got them together and some other friends and did some readings and did some rewrites. So we did this reading, and then Scott Yarber, who's the artistic director of Third Rail, was in the audience, and he's like, and I'm walking out, this is like every playwright's reading, he's like, call me. so I did, and then after discussion, the play, here we are. It's being produced around the corner now. So then Third Rail got a grant to bring a speaker out. So I'm talking to Susan, and who should we get? Who can remember? It's like Brian Jones. Brian Jones. So I got all those emails, and I sent him an email. Could you come out? And he said, oh, I'm so busy. I'm getting my PhD. I gotta go. And so we thought, oh, shoot, he can't. But he said, but this is how he answered. He said, I'm really busy. I can't do it, but here's my Tumblr calendar. So I looked at him and I said, well, there's a window. He didn't really say no. So I sent him another email, and I said, really, we can have lots of people. We really would like it to be you. And if you haven't seen Brian Jones, just the video of him speaking, I don't know where that was, of some event, and then The Inconvenient Truth Behind Waiting for Superintendent is a wonderful, just sort of a tracking of the history of what's happened to public education in New York City. And it has all this stuff that we're dealing with now in the state of Oregon. They have done for us. So it's and I'll just give you a little history, a little intro to Brian before I introduce. Brian's he's a teacher. He's taught 4th grade in Harlem for 8 years, and then in Brooklyn last year he's on an unpaid leave this year to get his PhD. He got some funding to get a PhD. He's a writer. He's a wonderful writer. He wrote an essay in the Education and Capitalism book. If you get a chance to read that, he writes for the Huffington Post, Democracy Now, all those lefty blogs that you can find. And he's just a wonderful, very dynamic, smart speaker, and I feel so honored that he said yes and that he's here. So I will just turn the mic over to him.